Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello. What if one of the greatest lessons in history isn't about how nations are built, but how they fall apart? And if we don't understand why it happened once, are we destined to watch it happen again? Welcome to Lessons in History. This is episode 1 of a 6-part series where we're going to look at what happened in the past and how can we relate it to what's happening in the present. Joining me is my dear friend, colleague, and mentor, Mr. Al Cini. Let's welcome him to the program. Al, good to have you today.
It's a pleasure being here, Dr. Jacalyn. Thanks so much for inviting me to play a small part in this kind of exciting program. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. And we have a very special guest who is joining us from London, and he's going to actually share some insights about what I teed up today. Our guest is Sabri Agimi, and he is a very experienced journalist and someone who has extensive experience presenting in television. And he's also a moderator who spent decades reporting on issues affecting the Albanians throughout the United Kingdom and Europe. He's originally from Kosovo, now based in London. And he brings both professional insight and personal perspectives to one of the most significant geopolitical stories of the 20th century, the rise and eventual dissolution of Yugoslavia. Let's welcome him to the program. Hello, Sabri. Nice to have you today. Okay, well, he apparently cannot hear us. Can you hear me, Al?
I can. I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's give Sabri a minute to get his audio connected because you and I are able to hear. Maybe he should sign out and then come back in. So, Al, what is your feeling about studying history? Some people are really adamant about doing so, and other people are like, history's not really going to repeat itself. But what are your thoughts?
Well, the older I get, the more I become a part of it. It's kind of funny. And I finally reached an age where I think I have more appreciation, I think, than I might have when I was younger, when it was an academic exercise. This particular chapter that we're going to be discussing today is a very interesting one to me, in that it's a history of the Balkans after World War II and how the nations of the Balkans evolved over that period. And it was, as you pretty much said in your opening introduction, it was very fitful. It was difficult. And I think for me anyway, one of the major lessons of history is that it's not just about building individual nations. It's about stitching individual nations into a fabric that we call the world, where we establish commercial ties and we establish cultural ties and we create opportunities to learn from each other rather than dominate each other. That is a very, very, very resonant lesson today. I think anybody who studies modern history knows that the world, if it's going to evolve into a peaceful place, has got to be about allowing people to be what they are and tolerating different points of view and inviting people into your world, but not forcing them into your world, not trying to confine them or limit them. And I think it's a lesson that the nation of Yugoslavia, breaking up and reassembling over time, kind of learned the hard way. And that's why I'm interested in hearing Sabri's perspectives on some of these events.
Agreed. And we're waiting for Sabri to come back and join us. Al, a lot of what you just mentioned to me comes down to one thing, which seems so basic and so simple, but it's about listening to each other without judgment, without trying to solve problems, without interruption, without stage hogging. And without being able to listen, I don't really feel like we have anything, except we've got to start back at the basics. And Sabri is with us now. Let's make sure he can hear us.
Well, no, I just took the mic.
Hello.
So it seemed like there was a problem with them.
Okay,
Great.
fantastic. Well, welcome to the program. We're glad to have you. So,
Glad to be
Sabri,
with you.
you heard the introduction, and so where would you like to take the conversation based on what I said when I introduced you?
But thank you so much, first of all, to give me this opportunity to talk about, seemed like myself, and certainly the country I was born at, which is Yugoslavia, specifically in Kosovo, but it's independent country today out of it. So I would recommend you, since we have a few programs to go, to start with how Yugoslavia was after the Second World War, and then how things evolved, of course, always as an Albanian within Yugoslavia, that I was born in 1971. And then we can kind of continue to, in other shows, to continue to explain more or less how the details of Yugoslavia went and how did Yugoslavia dissolve in the end, to the point that was created 7 countries out of it.
I think that's a great plan. Maybe Sabri, you can walk us through and summarize the arc of Yugoslavian history post World War II, and then we can talk about some of the things we've learned from it.
So Yugoslavia after World War II had become, from the Yugoslavian kingdom that was called Serbo-Croatian and Slovenian kingdom, that was led mainly by King of Serbia, to the Serbia after war that was run by communist dictator known as Josip Broz Tito then, that he became in power due to the defeat of Germans, Nazists, and certainly won the Russia and Western world. So the Yugoslavia then, as it was set off as 6 republics and 2 provinces, which was Kosovo and Vojvodina. The republics were Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro, Slovenia, Macedonia, and Bosnia-Herzegovina. When provinces were Kosovo and Vojvodina, and they were through Serbia, the Republic of Serbia. And the reason that they kind of thought that the excuses, I'll better put it, to say, was that Kosovo need to support it by to be administrated. So they left into Serbian mercy to actually do that for Kosovo, where majority were Albanians. During that period of time, we'll talk through step by step, but just to say that Kosovo, the Yugoslavia was built based on the 7 nations and other minorities. The main nations were Serbs, and then Croats, then Albanians within Yugoslavia, which was spread near Kosovo and region there, part in Serbia, part in Montenegro, and part in Macedonia. And then it was Slovenia, Bosnians, Montenegrins, and Macedonians. So Macedonia today, or Northern Macedonia is called, it used to be about 45% or 50%, about 60% it was Macedonians and Serbs, and the others were Albanians. That's more or less the configuration of Yugoslavia. It was a socialist communist system.
What about getting from Tito to Milosevic? How did that happen? And what happened that made that transition happen?
So from Tito to Milosevic, I would go step by step, due to the fact that it was like a good 30, 40 years of how can I put, evolving of Yugoslavia then between 2 superpowers in the East and West. And certainly Tito played a good game between them to actually create a non-alliance pact that was with India and Egypt, to just and few other countries, to just kind of show a bit of his muscles, which he thought it would be a game to play between superpowers plus creating of those pacts. Now, within Yugoslavia, what happened was those 6 republics that they have, and Serbia was left with 2 provinces. And bear in mind that being as an Albanian, I would say that at that time, that Tito was the main character, which was the president and have all the posts. But the second most powerful person then was Alexander Rankovic, which was a Serbian interior minister. Because Kosovo was Albanian, they did not have a main kind of republic within Yugoslavia, because the republic means to have a right in the direct connected to the Federation of Yugoslavia. Then Albanians were treated as a second-class citizens. And certainly during that time, while Yugoslavia was kind of settling after the war, the Alexander Ragovic and Serbian nationalists put severe pressure on Albanians and pushed them as much as possible to deport them or cleanse them. And there was some kind of agreement between, a gentleman agreement, I'll say, between Turkey and Josip Broz Tito, I think foreign minister of Turkey then, Josip Broz Tito, to actually create that kind of step-by-step removing Albanians from Kosovan region to settle back in Turkey, thinking that way would reduce the number of Albanian population, which they believed at that time that the best way to create the space for Serbs would be by cleansing Albanians. I think that lasted until 1966, approximately, when actually that Alexander Rankovic, who the Serb nationalists believed that was a time and risked the Tito's position. And at that time, Josip Broz Tito took kind of from Brion's, one of the meeting, took decision to bring that down. And from then and on, it was nationalist Serbs were a bit kind of calmed down. In 1968, there was uprising for better rights of Albanians in Kosovo, which then we were given right to have our own Albanian flag and right to the education, a few other rights, and considered as a province connected directly to the Federation of Yugoslavia, the government at that time, a bit more inclusive. To continue 1970s, there was university in Kosovo, the first university to be established in Albanian language. And from then and on, the Albanians picked up step by step the strength in education and other kind of progress. 1974, then there was an autonomy of Kosovo. There was a greater right that technically was directly into the government, the Federation of Yugoslavia as a constitutive element. They were calling at that time, means that Kosovo would have all the rights of the republic, except the name did not have it. So all the decisions that were made, they were made in Kosovo. They did not have to be approved by Serbia anymore, but would be approved by Yugoslavia then, by government of Yugoslavia. So that's more or less how it happened during that time before we came to Milosevic's time. Of course, the Serb nationalism never accepted that as a kind of, but they just waited for another option to trigger that to kind of come back to it. There happened lots of changes and things, as you can understand, during those kind of years. But we are I'm more mainly focusing on how Albanians in Kosovo find its feet through those kind of challenges and changes. The repression of in Yugoslavia and dictator Josip Broz Tito was called, However, it seemed like he was one of the most democratic dictator in Eastern world, I would say, at that time, which kind of allowed the people to leave during 1970s to 80s. I think was one of the Yugoslavians were one of the most accepted people to travel around the world. I think there was a few years that the nationalism came down a bit, and they thought that they actually made up out of it. So that's more or less how it happened during the Tito time until Tito died, 1980, basically.
Right. And you know, I know the history of that area. I don't want to say the country, because at that point it was becoming fragmented, wasn't it? I mean, where there was an independence movement, several independence movements kind of evolving separately at the same time that caused Yugoslavia to break up in the early 90s. Do I have that right?
You do have right. So what happened in 1998, when Tito passed away, the Serb nationalism seized an opportunity then that actually to claim its planned territory back. Don't forget that Serbia was grown by cleansing and kind of achieving goals by expanding through expulsion of the other nations, specifically Albanians. And the reason being why it's because I think Albanians, they were weakest due to the fact that they were not bordered with Western world, but they were bordered with the main Albania, Greece, which did not help very much, and other poor towns, and Bulgaria as well. So it was a time that the Serbian nationalism started coming up slowly after Tito passed away, and then building up on it, it helped that somebody as nationalist as Slobodan Milosevic, and the one who implemented the best possible way, in his way, the so-called Memorandum of Čubrilović that was done in 1937, how to expel others, specifically Albanians, from Kosovo, and to claim the Kosovo as its own country, and certainly removing other Albanians as possible. Why it is important to know why it was so much about Albanians, because based on some statistics and based on the way they work out, it was very difficult to understand to make happen that Albanians would leave their own kind of country, knowing that they were kind of for centuries, or I would say we are one of the native nation there. So I think it was a moment that they thought, let's take advantage of it. And Milosevic basically became the one that thought can do the fastest way.
Now, somewhere in the mix of all that, I know that the International Criminal Court was born. And ultimately, Milosevic ended up indicted by the International Criminal Court. You mentioned cleansing, and of course, cleansing in some respects is expulsion, but also in some respects it's genocide. And Milosevic, did he rightfully earn the title Butcher of Belgrade? I mean, did he deserve that title? I mean, did
Butcher
he,
of So
Butcher of the Balkans.
Let me take you back. Yeah, I think, the Milosevic, when he came to power, and Serb nationalism, what they did is because they tried to create the Yugoslavia into some kind of Serbian hegemonist country. So the aim of Serbia wasn't only Kosovo. The aim of Serbia was to gain control over Croatia. The aim of Serb nationalism was to, and basically they were kind of, quite lots of science and information there. There was a plan by Academy of Science of Serbia how to actually cleanse or reduce the Bosnians, which happened already, and finally the United Nations recognized that as genocide against Bosnians recently, if you may be aware of it. So the Serbian nationalism and hegemonism did not, that led by Milosevic, but of course, to come to that, there was quite lots of work, because Albanians, why I'm picking on Albanians, not just because I'm Albanians, but in ex-Yugoslavia, we were treated like second-class citizens. We were denied to the normal schools until late. We were expelled. We were beaten. We were looted at our house by actually government, like I mentioned, in 1945 to 1966, under pretext of giving up weapons and all these kind of things. So they basically, they kind of pushed us quite loads around, and they built their, how can I say, they built their hate on Albanians, to then, once they pumped their Serbian nationalism, they used them for Croatia, Croatia, Bosnia, and then to return in Kosovo again in 1999. Milosevic, yes, Milosevic was a strateg. He knew international law because he was qualified. He used the power that Yugoslavia had, because what they did, it's Serbia and Montenegro, after the country started divided by Croatia, Slovenia, Bosnia, Macedonia, all the wealth or intellectual property as well as weapons, Serbia with Montenegro claimed as their own, under pretext that they want to protect Yugoslavia. So they became quite powerful in that aspect, which then they used against everyone around, as you're aware. And then, because of this, Milosevic was known as somebody who had authority and power of all these changes that had happened from 1987 to the 1999, which happened like, I would say, 4 wars. It was Croatia, Bosnia, and then Kosovo. In Slovenia, did not last very long. And Macedonia was another story, but yeah. So then we come to Milosevic if we want to focus on it. How did he climb to the power? Slobodan Milosevic climbed to power. He was in the United States. I think he was working for the bank, Yugo Bank in the United States, to my knowledge. And then he came back in 1985, got engaged in politics. As I remember very well, in Center Committee of Communist Party of Serbia, he started showing that basically the growth of Serbia should not happen very slow, but we should be a bit faster. We kind of should protect Serbs in Kosovo, which was minority, and certainly they have rights, because Kosovars did not have power to question the Serbian rights in there. And he came by promising them that there's no hair gonna miss in your head while I'm around. And then from there, he came back to Serbia and gained that superpower that actually used it with Serb nationalism, and created all this kind of structure below him that managed to commit the crimes against humanity. Bear in mind, you need quite lots of propaganda machine work, which Serbia had from 1980s, kind of all media, they used it to work for them, and to actually create that kind of environment that even Serbs start believing their existence is in question. And certainly there was an economic crisis as well within Yugoslavia, because there was no much production. It was more like dissolving, as it seems to be.
What is it that made Albania different? What is it that made Albania easy prey, essentially, in that process, where they just became an easy target for everybody?
So if I go steps back again, lack of education, because we did not have an access to education until 1970s. I'm talking about the high level education, and less individual that they were able to go in other universities of Yugoslavia, and mainly have to speak Serbo-Croatian very well before they kind of can become. And certainly most of them, they tend to stay until the university was open. So the education was number one. There was severe repression that I mentioned, 1945 to 1966, that actually during that period of time, they were selected the best people that Albanians have and got rid of them one way or another, either isolate them, kill them, or deport them, or imprison them. So then Albania itself as a country could not stand up for us very much because it was self-isolating, as you probably know at that time. So they did not have power enough to stand up for us. And for the rest of the world, Yugoslavia was known to be like kind of a new country with a new way of progressing, because Croatia enjoyed the quite good investments through the coast and place to visit and outstanding other things. Belgrade, as capital city, was invested quite a bit. And Serbian propaganda, believe me, did not even go to the Croatia, Slovenia did not know until late that there is so much going on in Kosovo and Albanians. So that's what it kind of kept Albanians as a victims, because we have no support from anybody. And certainly we were spread in Yugoslavia. And Serbia have all that authority to supervise us in a way until 1968, when Tito actually came to visit Kosovo at some point. And the Tito started thinking that, and he said at one point, what I recall is, stronger Serbia, weaker Yugoslavia. That's what he said. So he kind of approved the fact that it was a mistake that Serbia was that strong. So it was mainly propaganda, and it was that used the rest of Yugoslavia to put pressure on Albanians, as we were treated like a second-class citizen, obviously.
And I get the impression, based on the way you're describing it, that Europe pretty much sat this out. They didn't get involved at all. They didn't support any particular side in this or try to help until quite a bit later.
Just the question again, I'm sorry.
Was Europe of any help in this process?
Europe. No, the Europe was quite indifferent. Europe was quite indifferent because Europe probably have its own problems. Remember how was Europe? Germany after the Second World War, was Great Britain under its own pressure and things that need to be dealt with. The France, they did not care very much. And to be honest, they at that time, after the Russian kind of war against the Nazis, they were more pro-Russian than pro-European. So there was kind of a cloud that they did not go into details, and they did not care very much what's happened with, and not much was able anybody to release the information from that part of the world. Bear in mind that in communist system, it is very difficult to get the information out of the country what's happening in most of the cases.
Yeah, I have an interesting aspect. I was going to ask about the media. I used to work for a pretty large television network in the United States, and in the early 90s, they had a meeting about covering the war, and they kind of made the decision that they weren't going to invest very much money in it because nobody really knew who the good guys were and who the bad guys were, and because media is driven by ratings, they felt like they only wanted to carry stories where people could root for one side over the other, almost like a sporting event. As a result of that, I think the world did not pay a lot of attention to what was going on in Yugoslavia during much of that period, and really didn't until quite a bit further down, after an awful lot of people had been hurt and displaced. Is that the way you remember it?
Correct. So when the world have taken some kind of action and start thinking about it, was until after 1981. 1981, with the protest of students of Kosovo for better rights, the Serbian nationalism have taken advantage and start kind of using their force, because their aim was to bring Kosovo down again to the one autonomous province into getting under its wings again, which it was impossible to do it anymore because Kosovo already have a university, already have rights in language and flags, and Albanians kind of was into the government. They were connected to the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. They were a bit more kind of able to say the truth about Kosovo and Albanians. And but that's where kind of it was quite a few years until the visitors from other parts of the world came direct to Kosovo and start kind of monitoring what exactly is happening. And then in 1990s, we have Bob Dole with about 8 of his congressmen came to visit Kosovo. And at that time, while the population of Kosovo was greeting them, they were beaten up, they were treated badly by police. So they seen in real life what's happening. So then that time start kind of United States start kind of being a bit more engaged and trying to understand what exactly is happening, and the rest of Europe, obviously. So then when actually we start kind of having a bit more say, and certainly there was representatives of Kosovo within Yugoslavia during those protests, 1981 to 1998, I think, they start losing a bit of respect from Kosovars. But then when Serbia came to actually dissolve our communist committee at that time that was leading Kosovo, independent from Serbia, and Serbia tried to by force dissolve that, then the Albanian population started turning to support their own government. Then it was Communist Party part of, which it sounds a bit confusing, but if you lived in those times, it was quite interesting, because what's happening is, if we were letting that government to go, then the logic behind it was using Yugoslavia to take away our freedom that we had, if we had any, like autonomous province. And then that time, the Serbia could not do what they want to change the government by force in such a way, because they found a big resistance. But then they actually use other means into calling the committee with guests. And I recall in I think it was 1999. No, 1990, that they actually put the guest into the parliament, it's equivalent to parliament, and got them to vote as well. So they were tricked in that way. And the next 2 days, the MPs or delegates came to the parliament again. They did not allow in anymore because they want to dissolve the parliament. And then what happened, they were told by some activists that you're allowed to start holding your meetings outside the building. You don't necessarily need to go in the building. So 111 MPs hold the meeting in front of the parliament and kind of disagree with what Serbia tried to do. So from then, there was kind of another meeting in Kacanik, which there was in September 1999. Kacanik is part of Kosovo, by elected deputy MPs that declare Kosovo as a separate republic. And from then on, they create this kind of parallel government, so to say. And certainly the democratic system kicked in Yugoslavia at that time. So that's more or less how it was, which Milosevic did not accept that, of course.
Right. I just have one last question. I know we're coming up on the end of the program, and it's been a great conversation, but you lived through this, didn't you? You and your family experienced much of this.
Yes.
What was that like?
In 1971, I was 11-year-old when first protest happened, and when Serbia started kind of taking advantage of then confusion in Yugoslavia. Yes, I was born there.
And what was life like for you and your family during that period?
Well, I lived in the part of Kosovo when we used to have refugees that were forced out from within Serbia, like in 1912, I think. So I remember the elderly people, they talked about it, how they were expelled. And I remember a father was kind of explaining the stories and all this kind of planning of how to cleanse Albanians and stuff. So when these things happened, 1980, 1981 and on, I remember there was step-by-step explain of what's happening and what we're going to expect. So it was some kind of deja vu that had happened based on the stories. And in our generation, we're seeing that it's happening again. And maybe at that time we felt powerless to actually do anything about it apart from, thanks God, what we did. And we had a bit more intellectuals involved, and the media was a bit more kind of managed to get out the information. And but yeah, that it was severe. During my time there was a poisoning of the students and pupil as well, and it's known to be by Serbian government directly kind of involved in it, and they tried to hide that. And of course, there was a leak through some kind of media that they took video into Romania, and then that's how the world knew about it. So they got involved even poisonous with some kind of severe poison that was thrown in the schools, and that happened for a week or 2 weeks. So it was like this kind of repression constantly, that you are constantly at war. Special force from Yugoslavia have been brought in under pretext that we want to protect Kosovo because Kosovo wanted to be divided, and in fact they created kind of stop checks everywhere possible. So you as a student, well, I'm talking about personal for me, while you're going to school and back from school as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, you'll be stopped, you'll be questioned, you'll be most of the time beaten as well. There'll be protests on and off. So they would kind of go into the cafe, collect anybody they can throw in the back of the van. So it was, every day wasn't predicted what tomorrow is going to happen. So it was the times that your mom say goodbye. Excuse me.
Yeah, that was great. And where do things stand now, really quickly? I know Dr. Jacalyn's going to bring us back in, but where do things stand in that region now?
In the Kosovo, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the Kosovo at the moment is under protection of NATO, called NATO Special Forces, called K4, and so it's protected under that. But now it's a country that have its own police and are the best in region. Not that I say, but that is been because they've been kind of educated and prepared by experts from Western world, and certainly they have access to all the kind of preparation training around the Western world. We got the security forces equivalent to the army that again are the most advanced for the size. They are the 5,000, but they are most advanced in region, and mainly is because they are trained by NATO countries, specifically United States, United Kingdom, Germany, France, and so on. And you got the best, what you calling internal intelligence, that even that they were kind of trained by United States Special Forces, United Kingdom, and others. So progress is really good. And I've got to say, Kosovo was recognized 2 years ago one of the safest country in Europe, and the second or third safest country in the world. That's how is known at the moment. How long that's going to last is in question, because as geopolitics are kind of shaking, I think that can affect Kosovo, and certainly Balkans, that knowing that Serbia haven't recognized yet Kosovo, their kind of their aim is always to somehow claim it back again.
Thank you, Sabri.
Thank you so much, Sabri, for sharing this information in your own personal journey. You are going to be with us for 5 more episodes as we continue this conversation. As we close out, if you could, in a couple of sentences, tell any leader out there, what is the lesson, a lesson that can be learned from this time period, if you could sum it up so that we don't repeat the same mistakes?
If the leaders of Yugoslavia then, and there was kind of lack of this nationalism and hegemonism that have taken on, focus a bit more on well-being of population, and actually like Europe, it's at the moment, I don't know how long it's going to last for, but at the moment it's like a free border control, and kind of you don't mind where you go, where you go into Germany, Switzerland, England. Well, England have put the borders, but freedom of movement. I think the people live the peaceful life, and people in between can find a way around to have a good relation, a friendly relation, and leave the propaganda. Propaganda, one nation against another. I think that would do quite well if we focus on positive things rather than hating each other.
Great lesson.
Fantastic message. Thank you, Sabri. We look forward to seeing you again for our next episode.
Oh, certainly. We're going to be more specific on subjects, because I think this was a bit of general information, I'll say.
It was very good. Great.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks for taking me on, having me.
Absolutely. Al, I really appreciate your role as the historian today, asking the questions. And what would you like to leave the audience with before we close out the show today?
I think there was a lesson in the middle of what Sabri was saying, and it had to do with education and whether a population is educated well enough to be able to govern itself. And he made several points along the lines that there was kind of a brain drain that made it difficult, in particular, for Albania to govern itself, or for Albania to assert itself in the middle of all this. And, protecting people's rights to an education and making education available to every citizen, regardless of their ethnicity or their religion, or their gender, making it possible for people to assume leadership positions by being educated well enough to be able to do it intelligently and competently. I think that is the secret to creating a pluralist society, a society where everybody has rights and everybody respects everybody else's. And, I'm really looking forward to the next 5 episodes, because I think as we drill down and focus on individual lessons, I think a lot of those lessons are going to bear that out.
Absolutely. Great point. Thank you very much for being here, Al. We'll look forward to seeing you at the next episode.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. As we close out the show today, one thing I just want to have you think about is history is never just about the past. We've heard the expression, history repeats itself. It's about understanding events that took place and how they influence our world today. And so most of you know I'm a peace ambassador, and I am very much an advocate for learning how to listen. And to me, that's where it all starts. Right now, you could be judging me. You could be judging Al, Sabri, this show, this network. But the question is, what is it that is motivating you to judge instead of be present and listen? When we listen without judgment, without trying to solve problems, without interrupting, and without trying to make it about us, that to me is the first step. Finding peace within yourself, and then being there for someone else as a sounding board, just to listen. And I believe if the leaders around the world actually took more time to listen instead of power plays of who's in charge and who gets what and who goes where, I think it would be a very different world. But we're going to continue this exploration on our next show, Lessons in History. If you haven't done so far and you'd like to stay with us for the series, please consider subscribing to our channels. We do broadcast many places on many networks, but I always like to send people to our YouTube channels, USA Global TV and Radio, and Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Until then, remember, what happens today will have a ripple effect on what happens tomorrow. And you never know who is looking to you for inspiration or direction. Even in social media, what amazes me is people that I will run into, or they will send me an email, they see something, but they don't actually comment on it at the time, which means we all are here playing a role and have the ability to influence what the future will look like when we study the events of the past. Thank you again for being here. We look forward to seeing you for our next show, which is coming up right after this. We will talk to you then. Bye. USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
What if many of the problems we associate with aging are not random? What if there are identifiable causes behind declining energy, chronic disease, and memory problems? We have been told that aging is simply something we must accept, that slowing down is normal, that growing older means growing weaker. But what if that's only part of the story? Why do some people remain active and engaged well into their later years? Why do others struggle with disease, fatigue, and declining health? What is happening beneath the surface? What processes drive aging? In Aging Sucks, researcher, educator, and author Red O'Loughlin explores what researchers have discovered about why we grow older. No medical degree required, no confusing jargon, just clear explanations of what researchers have discovered about the processes that influence aging. You cannot stop aging, but understanding its causes may help you make better decisions about your health, your future, and your quality of life. Because understanding comes before action. Action creates hope. Aging sucks. End the guesswork. There is hope.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.